So when you go shopping, do you like to touch and feel the clothes? I mean, not only are they visually interesting to you, but it's the touching and the feeling and the texture of the clothes that can really excite you and move you to want to try on an outfit or even make that purchase. Well, today we're going to talk about texture, and we're going to learn that texture, is one of those elements that bring out emotion. Like you can love the way something feels because of the texture, and it makes you want to cozy up with it, or it makes you feel elegant, or it can just evoke those various feelings and emotions. So texture is a pretty key element in design, especially in, I would say, like our evening gowns and our old outerwear and things of that nature. So let's talk about it. You're listening to Marketing Adventure, the hub for business, fashion, marketing, and other CTE educators who integrate marketing into the learning experience. I'm your host, Jackie Walker. Each week, I'll cover marketing education concepts, strategies, tips, trends, frameworks, and other information to equip you to connect your classroom to digital natives while cultivating an engaged learning environment. So come on into the room where your favorite beverage, snacks, and even your cell phone are all welcome. So as stated in the intro, texture is the way a surface feels, or it's the way it's perceived to feel. So texture holds power. It has the power to attract or detract a viewer's eyes, and it can be applied to lines, shape, and form. And you may be like, well, how can it attract or detract? Because texture, as I stated before, when it's used on things such as outerwear and evening wear, say evening wear, for instance, the texture could be sequins. Sequins is going to attract your eye. All little girls love sequins, glitter, those things that shine and bring your eye to them. That is texture. You touch it and you feel the texture, but also it's a visual thing too. Even if, let's say, there was a picture of sequins and not actually textured, still it gives the perception of texture, even if it's in a picture. All right. So it can detract from your eye because maybe it's rough, or, it's rugged. It is not appealing. So it also can move the eye away from the object. Texture can also give the illusion of size. Depending on the texture, it can make something appear bigger, or it can make something appear smaller than it is. That varies across the board, with the depth of the texture, the softness of the texture, the fullness of the texture. So all of those things can make an object or give the illusion that something is bigger or smaller than it is. Take, for instance, fur, because it has the fluff. The texture of it is big, and it can make whoever's wearing the object seem bigger than they are. It has a lot of fullness to it, so it can give the illusion of fullness and make something look a little bit bigger than normal. Now, because texture does have depth and it does can attract and detract the eyes, it can cover up irregularities in someone's figure, by the use of the texture in the clothing and in the way that it's used in the clothing. As with the other elements of design, texture does add interest to a garment. So it can give more creativity and a different feel to a garment than, let's say, if the garment did not have any texture to it, if it was just smooth material without any pile or softness or fur or anything like that to it. It gives creativity to the garment. It adds interest, a different element. Hey, adventurous educator. I just want to take a quick break to ask, is this your first time teaching fashion marketing, or do you need a boost in your curriculum? Well, look no further. I have the Ultimate Fashion Marketing Class Bundle. It's packed with 4 vibrant presentations, fun and engaging activities, quizzes, and 4 major projects for an immersive semester of fashion exploration. And it comes with the pacing guide for an 18-week semester. Additionally, each assignment has detailed student instructions and suggested pacing times so that you can tailor the time frame to fit your teaching schedule. For more information about this must-have bundle, go to marketingadventure.com and search Ultimate Fashion Marketing Class Bundle, or simply click the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. Now, on this last part of my discussion about texture, we are going to look at the 3 different types of texture. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there is tactile texture, structural texture, and visual texture. Now, tactile means to touch, something that you do with your hands. So when we talk about tactile texture, that means we can actually touch something and feel the texture. One of the things that comes to mind as an example is a tree. And when you touch a tree, you feel the bark on the tree. It actually has texture. Just like when you touch other fabrics and things of that nature, like I mentioned, fur, before you touch it, you feel the softness of the texture of the fur. So tactile texture is something that you can actually feel. Structural texture comes into play when the texture is determined by the fibers and the yarns that were used to create the fabric. So it is a created texture. So, for example, like your velvet, your corduroy, your denim, your satin, cotton, polyester, those things are fabricated. They're created, and to give that texture to that fabric. So those are used in a variety of garments, and they're used for different events, different times of year, because of the thickness of the texture or the thinness of the texture. So those, because they are a fabricated texture, are called structural texture. Now, the last type of texture that we're going to talk about is visual. As it's implied, it is texture that you can see, not touch. So let's say, if, like I used the example of the sequence, when you look at it on a picture, you can't touch it, but your eyes do see the texture, which allows you to have some type of idea of what it feels like, especially from experience. Same thing with the tree. The tree, you can feel the bark, you see a picture of it, you see the bark on the tree, and you know that how that texture feels. Our kids, when they're drawing pictures, when they're little, they draw trees and they don't put the bark on the tree. It's all nice and smooth. We don't get the vivid picture of what a tree is really like because it doesn't have the bark. But when we see a picture of a tree with the bark, we get to, it wakes up our senses of how that feels. In the textile industry, visual texture comes into play because The textile industry, or when the textile manufacturer creates fabrics, they will print designs onto the fabric. They're not necessarily like embroidered into the fabric, although you can have embroidered designs, but most fabrics that you find in a fabric store have printed designs, or they're woven. So a visual texture, as I said, can be found in all of the fabrics, most of the fabrics in the fabric stores. So let's talk about floral print. It gives the illusion of flowers and all of that, but you can't touch it. You can't touch the flowers. It's a smooth surface. So it illuminates the idea of a garden or floral, but you can't actually touch it like you can touch real flowers. Now, also, fabrics can be finished with a shiny surface, which does make a wearer, when they're wearing something shiny, it can make their bodies appear bigger than normal because it's reflecting light, which then makes the eyes expand out to see bigger. Also, with the florals or the prints, it can make things look um, taller or wider just based on how the garment is made or how the fabric is used in the construction of a garment. So that is your visual texture. It creates the illumination of the idea of texture, real texture, by the print or the finish of the fabric on the garment. And there you have it. This concludes our discussion about texture. Next week, we are going to complete out the elements of design, and I am going to cover 4 elements in one episode. And that's because these elements are key to design, but they don't have a lot that needs to be said about them. They're plain and simple, but are necessary as a part of the element of design. I do thank you for joining me here at Marketing Adventure with Jackie, and I hope you have a wonderfully blessed day. Thanks for listening to Marketing Adventure. Remember to subscribe, rate, review, and share this episode with someone you think would benefit from the information shared here today. If you have any questions or want to connect with me, find me on Instagram at Marketing Adventure. All links and resources discussed in this episode can be found in the show notes at marketingadventure.com.